a banking dynasty that literally financed the building where Jerusalem's mayor and city hall operate. A Russian-born oligarch who cashed out $1 billion from the Russian Facebook just before the Kremlin tightened its grip, and then immediately bought a national TV network. And a developer whose $30 million penthouses inside the Waldorf Astoria sit empty 50 weeks a year, functioning as offshore safety deposit boxes for foreign billionaires. Yeah, these are the 12 richest families quietly controlling the most contested city on Earth. Global Status had to dig through hidden Swiss banking ledgers, sealed philanthropic trusts, and the off-market property records of the old city to find them. From the venture capitalist who turned the abandoned National Mint into $1 billion tech citadel, all the way up to the dynasty that owns the dirt every Jerusalem politician stands on, every one of these names commands a piece of the city no tourist ever sees. Starting at number 12 with the man who built a digital perimeter around the most ancient capital on the planet. Number 12. The Margalit Venture Pipeline, the gatekeeper of the code. When analyzing the accumulation of wealth in the Middle East, the global media typically focuses entirely on the coastal skyline of Tel Aviv. Margalit recognized this massive geographical blind spot and exploited it to build a formidable technology empire right in the heart of a highly traditional city. As the founder of Jerusalem Venture Partners, JVP, Margalit did not rely on standard real estate development. He synthesized his fortune by engineering the city's transition into a global hub for cybersecurity and artificial intelligence. The capital was generated by identifying a severe structural inefficiency. For decades, Jerusalem was economically stagnant, heavily reliant on government bureaucracy, university academia, and tourism. Margalit recognized that the city possessed elite mathematical and engineering talent flowing out of its institutions, but it lacked the aggressive early-stage private equity required to commercialize it. By establishing JVP in 1993, he created an inescapable financial funnel, capturing the best local software developers before they could migrate to the coast or to the United States. He protected this venture pipeline through a masterstroke of urban redevelopment. Margalit acquired the grounds of the historic, abandoned National Mint and the old train station, transforming them into the JVP Media Quarter. This is not merely an office space. It is a heavily funded, vertically integrated tech citadel that physically anchors his portfolio companies to the city. The ultimate power move was his ability to merge private equity with civic diplomacy. By proving that high-tech innovation could thrive in a religiously complex environment, he secured massive capital injections from international institutional investors. What amateur analysts fundamentally misunderstand about venture capital is the concept of regional leverage. While the world argues endlessly over physical borders, Margalit quietly built a multi-billion-dollar digital perimeter, proving that the most valuable, untouchable real estate in the modern era is the proprietary code protecting it. Number 11. The Cass Retail Citadel, the suburban monopolist. While international developers bleed their capital dry fighting over microscopic, hyper-expensive plots of land directly adjacent to the old city, Hanok Cass executed a completely different, infinitely more scalable strategy. Through the Cass Group, he amassed a staggering real estate fortune by recognizing that the future of the city's wealth lay not in the congested urban center, but in the rapid, unstoppable expansion of its suburban perimeter. The money was forged through the aggressive development of mega retail and entertainment complexes perfectly tailored to specific, highly insulated demographics. Traditional developers ignored the rapidly expanding commuter towns surrounding the capital. Cass utilized massive capital leverage to construct D-City, an awe-inspiring, flawlessly engineered design and retail hub, and Magic Cass, the largest indoor amusement park in the entire nation. He essentially built a self-contained, multi-million shekel commercial oasis in the desert. He protects this empire through absolute environmental control. Because the regional climate is notoriously harsh, featuring scorching summers and freezing winters, massive, climate-controlled indoor environments are incredibly lucrative. By owning the physical structures that provide year-round, weatherproof entertainment, his properties guarantee immense, predictable foot traffic entirely immune to seasonal fluctuations. His absolute power move is the psychological capture of the consumer. He forces the population to drive away from the city center to access his facilities, essentially trapping their disposable income within his proprietary ecosystem before it can ever reach the traditional urban retailers. What the general public completely misinterprets about real estate is the illusion of prestige. People believe the most powerful developers own the historic hotels downtown. The Cass family proves that true, high-velocity cash flow is generated by building a commercial fortress on the city limits and monopolizing the weekend spending habits of the entire suburban middle class. Number 10. The Fattal Hospitality Syndicate. The Pilgrimage Tax. Jerusalem attracts millions of international visitors annually, creating a massive, highly predictable stream of foreign capital. However, the true titans of the city do not operate the airlines or the tour buses. They control the very beds the tourists sleep in. David Fattal, the mastermind behind Fattal Hotel Group, constructed the largest hospitality organization in the nation, securing a brutal, undeniable chokehold on the city's transient population. The fortune was synthesized not by merely buying hotels, but through the aggressive optimization of the hotel management contract model. In his early expansion phase, Fattal did not absorb the crippling debt required to physically purchase every single building. Instead, he convinced wealthy real estate owners to let him operate their properties. He essentially transferred the massive structural and financial risk to the property owners while hoarding the operational revenue and scaling his brand at a terrifying velocity. To completely insulate this multi-billion shekel empire, Fattal engineered absolute vertical integration across every tier of the luxury spectrum. In Jerusalem, his portfolio spans from heavily fortified, ultra-premium boutique hotels catering to foreign dignitaries to massive, high-volume properties like the Leonardo brand designed for massive tour groups. If a tourist arrives in the city, there is a statistical certainty they will end up funneling foreign currency into the Fattal ecosystem. The ultimate power move was taking the entire conglomerate public on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange while retaining absolute dictatorial voting control over the board of directors. What casual observers entirely misunderstand about the Jerusalem hotel industry is the nature of the consumer. The global elite do not view tourism in this specific city as a casual vacation. They view religious and historical pilgrimage as a perfectly inelastic demand curve. David Fattal effectively acts as a sovereign toll collector, heavily taxing every single foreign visitor who requires shelter within the ancient city limits. Number 9. The Levy Logistics Monarchy. The Supply Chain Sovereign. Moving away from international tourism and into the brutal, razor-thin margins of domestic consumption, we encounter a man who literally controls the survival of the working class. Rami Levy began his career operating a tiny 40-square-foot stall in the chaotic Mahane Yehuda market. Today, he commands Rami Levy Hashikma Marketing, a terrifyingly efficient, multi-billion shekel discount supermarket empire that single-handedly broke the historical retail duopolies of the nation. The capital was generated through sheer, undeniable logistical warfare. For decades, the Israeli grocery market was dominated by massive, highly unionized chains that charged exorbitant prices. Levy bypassed traditional distribution networks, negotiating directly with farmers and manufacturers. He aggressively deployed loss leader pricing strategies, selling essential goods below cost, to utterly bankrupt local, independent grocers and capture the absolute loyalty of the city's rapidly expanding, budget-conscious demographics. He protects his fortune through aggressive diversification into the telecommunications sector. Levy launched Rami Levy Communications, the first mobile virtual network operator, MVNO, in the country. He leveraged the massive daily foot traffic of his supermarkets to sell cellular plans, instantly becoming a telecom baron without ever having to spend billions building physical cell towers. His absolute power move is his geographical dominance over the highly contested, politically sensitive commercial zones surrounding Jerusalem. He boldly constructs massive retail hubs in areas that other corporations consider too volatile, thereby capturing a totally unified consumer base comprised of diverse, historically divided populations who all ultimately care about one thing: the price of food. What elite financial analysts frequently fail to grasp about Rami Levy is his operational classification. They view him as a simple populist grocer. In reality, he is an apex logistics commander. He completely monopolized the daily, inescapable spending habits of the entire city, proving that he who controls the food supply ultimately controls the population. Number 8. The Azrieli Commercial Stranglehold. The privatization of public space. When massive wealth seeks permanent, generational stability, it does not rely on the stock market. It relies on steel, concrete, and consumer captivity. The late David Azrieli, a Canadian-Israeli billionaire, completely redefined the architectural and economic reality of the Middle East by introducing the concept of the enclosed, multi-level shopping mall. His heirs, led by Dana Azrieli, now command the Azrieli Group, a formidable real estate titan wielding a market capitalization in the tens of billions of shekels. The foundation of this staggering fortune was built on the Malha Mall, officially known as the Jerusalem Mall. Prior to its construction in the 1990s, the city's retail sector was fragmented, chaotic, and exposed to the elements. Azrieli recognized that in a city plagued by intense summer heat and severe security concerns, the population desperately required a heavily fortified, climate-controlled commercial sanctuary. He built an inescapable fortress of consumption. The family insulates this massive liquidity through absolute, uncompromising ownership. Unlike speculative developers who build and flip properties to aggressive hedge funds, the Azrieli Group builds and holds. Because they retain the physical deeds to their massive retail hubs, they dictate the terms of existence for every single commercial tenant in the region. Their ultimate power move was the calculated privatization of civic interaction. The Malha Mall did not just provide stores, it effectively replaced the traditional city square. By providing high-end security, pristine facilities, and global brands, the Azrieli family successfully centralized the social and economic lives of millions of residents within a privately owned, highly surveyed corporate structure. What modern tech investors completely misinterpret about physical malls is the narrative of their death. While retail struggles in the West, the Azrieli family proves that in the Middle East, a perfectly engineered commercial megastructure is not a dying concept. It is an invincible, high-yield cash printing machine. Number 7. The Nakash Luxury Fortress, the historical toll booth. In the highest echelons of international real estate, you do not simply purchase buildings, you acquire historical monopolies. Joe, Ralph, and Avi Nakash synthesized their initial billions in the 1980s by founding the Jordache Denim Empire in New York. However, they did not leave their capital trapped in the volatile fashion industry. They aggressively pivoted into aviation, agriculture, and prime real estate, specifically targeting the most irreplicable dirt on the planet. Their strategy in Jerusalem was nothing short of a sovereign-level acquisition. They secured the ownership of the Mamilla Hotel and the legendary Herbert Samuel Hotel. But their absolute masterpiece was the acquisition of the Citadel, a staggering luxury property built into a historic 12th century structure overlooking the ancient city walls. They protect their vast fortune through the concept of absolute scarcity. You can build a new skyscraper in Tel Aviv, but you can never ever manufacture more land directly adjacent to the Tower of David. By purchasing these hyper-specific, historically protected properties, the Nakash brothers effectively walled off their capital from traditional market depreciation. Their ultimate power move is the geographic chokehold they possess over the Mamilla Avenue. This open-air, ultra-luxury retail promenade is the sole modern high-end commercial bridge leading directly into the old city's Jaffa Gate. It is a literal physical funnel that every wealthy tourist and dignitary must walk through. What the general public completely fails to understand about the Nakash dynasty is their evolution. They are no longer apparel executives. They are apex land barons who analyzed the map of the most religiously and historically significant city on Earth, identified its primary pedestrian artery, and bought the deed to the gate. Number 6. The Reichmann Foreign Capital Pipeline, the offshore safety deposit box. True dynastic wealth is inherently transnational. The Reichmann family, operating out of Canada as the masterminds behind the legendary Olympia and York development firm, historically controlled massive swaths of the Manhattan and London skylines. When their global empire faced aggressive financial restructuring, they utilized their deep private reserves to establish an undeniable, permanent footprint in the luxury bedrock of Jerusalem. The capital was deployed into the city to execute one of the most astronomically expensive and logistically terrifying property developments in the nation's history: the Waldorf Astoria Jerusalem. This was not a standard construction project. It required purchasing the ruins of the historic 1920s Palace Hotel, executing a multi-million-dollar preservation of the intricate facade, and hollowing out the interior to construct a hyper-modern, subterranean luxury fortress beneath it. They insulate their investment through the highly controversial, hyper-lucrative mechanics of ghost apartments. The residential wing of the Waldorf Astoria features ultra-premium penthouses priced in the tens of millions of dollars. These units are specifically marketed to overseas billionaires and global oligarchs who only visit the city for 2 weeks out of the year during major holidays. The ultimate power move of the Reichmann strategy is the creation of a sovereign wealth shelter. By constructing these flawless, high-security luxury vaults, they provided the international elite with the perfect mechanism to quietly park massive amounts of liquid capital entirely outside of European and American tax jurisdictions. What local citizens completely misunderstand about the housing crisis in the capital is the objective of these developers. The Reichmann legacy proves that overseas billionaires do not build $30 million penthouses to provide housing. They construct them to serve as impenetrable offshore safety deposit boxes completely divorced from the local economy. Number 5. The Shottenstein Philanthropic Vault, the Heritage Diplomats. When you command a multi-billion-dollar retail empire in the United States, your primary objective ceases to be profit generation. It becomes institutional immortality. J. Shottenstein, the visionary behind American corporate retail behemoths like American Eagle Outfitters and DSW, utilized his staggering liquid fortune to establish an unshakable, diplomatic footprint in the city. The money was generated by monopolizing the American shopping mall sector. However, the protection and elevation of his family's name required a completely different instrument: high-level, aggressive philanthropy. The Shottenstein family funneled tens of millions of dollars into the civic and historical infrastructure of the capital. Their absolute power move was the massive financial backing of the National Campus for the Archaeology of Israel. This sprawling state-of-the-art complex physically houses the nation's most precious historical artifacts, ancient scrolls, and archaeological treasures. By heavily funding and branding this specific institution, the family permanently aligned their corporate legacy with the physical, historical narrative of the entire state. What ordinary taxpayers completely misinterpret about billionaire philanthropy is the concept of charity. At this specific echelon of wealth, philanthropy is not a benevolent donation. It is elite institutional architecture. By financing the literal vaults that hold the country's history, the Shottenstein dynasty bypassed standard political lobbying entirely. They guaranteed themselves permanent, frictionless access to the highest levels of the municipal and national government. They proved that the ultimate display of global power is not buying a luxury hotel, but writing the check that builds the museum tasked with preserving the nation's identity. Number 4. The Wolfson Historic Foundation, the concrete benefactors. To comprehend the foundational architecture of the modern city, one must trace the concrete back to the old-world European wealth that poured it. Sir Isaac Wolfson, a legendary British retail magnate, utilized his massive mid-century fortune to physically underwrite the residential and medical expansion of Jerusalem during its most vulnerable decades. The capital was generated through the aggressive expansion of great universal stores in the United Kingdom. But rather than chasing flashy, short-term speculative returns, the Wolfson Foundation systematically deployed millions of pounds sterling into the deep, structural infrastructure of the Israeli capital. They provided the critical financial architecture necessary to construct the massive Wolfson Towers, which redefined the city's residential skyline, and they served as the primary historic benefactors for the Sher Zedek Medical Center, one of the most critical, high-volume trauma and research hospitals in the Middle East. The family insulated their legacy through the ultimate legal structure: the Irrevocable Philanthropic Trust. By embedding their wealth into hospitals and massive residential complexes, Their capital became permanently woven into the biological and social survival of the population. The power move of the Wolfson dynasty is their temporal dominance. Modern Silicon Valley billionaires are obsessed with the immediate gratification of an IPO. The Wolfson family proves that true, terrifying wealth operates on a multi-generational timeline. They did not need to launch a software application to achieve relevance. They cemented their legacy by pouring the physical bedrock of the city over half a century ago. What contemporary investors fail to grasp about institutional money is its permanence. Governments change, startups go bankrupt, and stock markets crash. But the hospitals and residential towers financed by the Wolfson dynasty remain standing, utterly immune to the volatility of the modern economic cycle. Number 3. The Arison Financial Foundation, the underwriters of expansion. If you want to control a city, you do not need to construct the buildings. You simply need to command the bank that issues the mortgages. Sherry Arison inherited a staggering fortune generated by the global Carnival Cruise Lines empire. However, she executed a flawless, ruthless pivot, transitioning her wealth from the high seas directly into the financial and structural heart of the nation. For years, Arison operated as the controlling shareholder of Bank Hapoalim, the absolute largest and most powerful financial institution in Israel. The bank serves as the primary underwriter for massive commercial real estate developments, infrastructure projects, and municipal bonds. Concurrently, she controlled Shikun and Binui, the oldest and largest construction and infrastructure company in the country. She insulated this unbelievable concentration of power by holding the absolute choke point of urban expansion. If a rival billionaire wanted to construct a new mall, pave a new highway, or develop a massive residential district in Jerusalem, there was a statistical certainty they had to acquire the debt financing from her bank and hire her construction firm to pour the asphalt. Her ultimate power move was the strategic, highly profitable liquidation of these assets. When regulatory scrutiny surrounding centralized corporate power intensified, Arison brilliantly sold down her controlling stakes, extracting billions of dollars in pure, liquid cash, while the market valuation was at its absolute peak. What the financial press continuously misunderstands about the Arison legacy is the nature of her influence. The media labeled her the cruise ship heiress. In reality, she was the silent, invincible engine of the city's expansion. She proved that absolute wealth is achieved by operating as the inescapable, highly capitalized middleman for the entire national economy. Number 2. The Mirilashvili digital oligarchy, the media sovereign. While the old guard built their empires on stone, logistics, and banking, the modern era belongs to the operators who control the flow of information. Yitzhak. Mirilashvili represents the terrifying, hyper-modern synthesis of extreme offshore tech liquidity and aggressive national media capture. The staggering fortune, officially estimated in the multi-billions, was synthesized by his co-founding of VKontakte, universally known as the Russian Facebook, alongside Pavel Durov. Mirilashvili recognized the shifting, hostile political climate in Eastern Europe. Operating with surgical precision, he cashed out his massive equity stake for roughly $1 billion in liquid cash just before the Russian state fully tightened its grip on the platform. He protected this astronomical wealth by executing a flawless geographic migration. He moved his physical and financial operations entirely to Israel, establishing a massive private base of operations that heavily influences the capital. He immediately deployed his Russian tech billions into hard Israeli assets, acquiring vast real estate portfolios through Rothstein Real Estate and heavily funding Watergen, an advanced technology company that extracts drinking water directly from the atmosphere. But his absolute, undeniable power move was the acquisition of Channel 14. Mirilashvili did not just want to live in the country, he wanted to command the narrative. By purchasing the controlling stake in a major national broadcasting network, he weaponized his liquid capital to fundamentally reshape the political and cultural discourse radiating out of Jerusalem. What amateur tech investors completely misunderstand about the modern oligarch is their endgame. Mirilashvili proves that the wealthiest residents of an ancient city do not deal in religious artifacts or simple luxury condos. They extract a billion-dollar fortune from a foreign digital network and instantly convert it into an untouchable, heavily fortified media and technology fortress right in the heart of the capital. Number 1. The Safra Institutional Architects, the Civic Sovereigns. We finally arrive at the absolute pinnacle of global financial influence. To achieve the number 1 position on this list, a dynasty cannot merely own a hotel, a bank, or a media network. They must own the very ground upon which the government stands. The Safra family is a legendary, ultra-private global banking dynasty that built their astronomical wealth over centuries of operating elite, highly secure financial institutions across the Middle East, Switzerland, Brazil, and the United States. The money was generated through a masterclass in extreme banking discretion and the preservation of global elite capital, establishing institutions like the Trade Development Bank and Republic National Bank of New York. The Safra dynasty is so heavily capitalized that their private holding structures rival the GDP of entire sovereign nations. They insulate their legacy in Jerusalem not by fighting the local municipality, but by completely absorbing it. The family weaponized their immense philanthropic trusts to orchestrate the most formidable display of civic power in the city's history. They did not just make a donation, they physically financed the construction of Safra Square, the massive, fortified complex that houses the Jerusalem City Hall and the mayor's administrative offices. Their ultimate power move extends deep into the intellectual architecture of the nation. The family heavily financed the Edmund J. Safra campus at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, essentially underwriting the physical laboratories and lecture halls where the country's elite scientists and political leaders are trained. What the global public completely fails to grasp about the Safra dynasty is the sheer magnitude of their territorial capture. You literally cannot walk into the municipal government headquarters or study at the premier academic institution of the capital without standing on dirt that was paid for by Safra banking capital. They are the undisputed invisible sovereigns of the city, proving that true, absolute power does not require a political campaign. It only requires the capital to build the building where the politicians work. From monopolizing the commercial gateways of the old city to commanding the digital media infrastructure of the nation, these dynasties prove one undeniable truth. True power in Jerusalem is not dictated by politicians. It is governed by the invisible, untouchable flow of private equity. They bypass the traditional barriers to build fortresses completely immune to public scrutiny. Which of these silent financial syndicates surprised you the most? Let us know in the comments. To uncover the invisible capital shaping our world, like and subscribe to Global Status.